some out in nature. It's beautiful out here. Feels good to be outside. Feels good to break old patterns of being sort of stuck inside, scrolling on YouTube and hoping that I'm gonna find something that's gonna that I'm gonna connect with, something interesting. Yeah, and it's sort of like this. When I'm sitting at home, sometimes I just feel like this draining energy, like life draining out of me, just sitting there without any real intentionality, and just sort of like watching other people talk on the internet. Oh, this is cool. It's a nice little path. Yeah, it's good to kind of get out of this environment. Yeah, and change up, our habits, and when we feel like the energy leaving our bodies, it's sometimes very tempting to just like find something that is sufficiently engaging to our imagination and our mind that it will distract us, from what we really feel inside. But I've sort of reached a point where, like, when I just feel the energy draining out of myself, I need to either do something creative, or I need to go outside and maybe get some exercise, get some fresh air, change up my environment, because just sitting inside all day and looking for something to stimulate my mind, that has worked for many years, in terms of preoccupying me and sort of giving me a place to incubate who I am and to think about. But now I'm 37 years old, and I don't know, I've reached a point where I actually want to put something out into the world, and I don't want to just soak up media and endlessly consume the energies of other people, because that can be very draining, because you're never really going to know yourself through just endlessly vicariously living through other people's stories and through other people's interpretation of the world. Because we all sort of want, we all have these skills that we want to use, and I think one of the things that can be very depressing is just feeling like you're not living a purpose. You're just sort of existing, and it's like we live in this world of consumerism and comfort seeking and pleasure seeking, that we forget our own, the purpose of life is not just being invisible and then consuming stuff, but also putting something out there, finding a community that appreciates us, and making something, expressing something valuable, and I think once we reach a certain point, we need to kind of get away from this comfort zone and start paying attention to what we feel, and start trying things, however useless we feel, and however inadequate we feel. It's better that we do make a failed attempt every day at something new, and something that we did creatively. And so I think we end up living in a world where sometimes we forget that just consumption is not going to lead to fulfillment. Anyhow, what's another subject that I'm interested in? I was watching some people on YouTube, and it's sort of interesting to study other human beings. And it brought up the subject to me about when we focus sort of to people who are like negative, and people who we tend to polarize with, and people who, when we are around them or when we interact with them, they're sort of draining of our energy. So I just wanted to start talking about this and see if any sort of interesting thoughts would come out of my mind, out of my mouth, that are like perhaps insightful. So it's very tempting, I think, to project onto others these negative qualities, that we find very obnoxious. And it's easy to find people out there in the world. You don't have to look long to find people that you can say, okay, this person is some kind of narcissistic sociopath, and like, why do they exist, and why am I forced to interact with them? And I mean, personally, I try to just avoid people like this myself. I've done a pretty good job of this. There's a few people in my life that I feel valuable enough for myself to stay in contact with. And if someone is an energy vampire, I just either I completely separated myself from them, or I keep my contact with them very limited. And also, I just sort of accept that this is who they are, and I don't try to get into a fight with them or change who they are. And I just accept that this is part of how the universe is sort of tempts us by challenging, because it's very tempting to get into a fight with these kind of people, and it's very tempting to put our attention on these people. But it's also a trap, because we it's like these people always they tend to lack insight, and they have like this full court press sometimes when we engage with them. They gaslight us into wanting to defend our position against them. But as Sun Tzu says in The Art of War, never allow your enemies to fight on the battleground of their choosing. So what I do is I just say, okay, this is okay. This is who they are. This is what they think, and I'm not gonna fight with them about anything. I'm not gonna try to change their minds about anything. I'm just going to let them be them, and they won't even know that I don't agree with them whatsoever. And they can take jabs at me if I happen to be in their vicinity, but I'm just gonna sort of laugh it off and say, well, you're another one of those guys. You're not gonna convince me to feel negative about myself, because whatever it is that I am, even if I'm some kind of fucked up maniac, psychopath, narcissist, whatever, like somebody wants to project onto me, or let's say if I was all these things, let's say if I was some kind of fucked up dysfunctional person, I mean, that's still who I am. I still have to be on my side, because what would be the use in me trying to feel bad about what I am to this world? Why would I take a position against myself in favor of what these other people believe about me? Personally, I think it's very clear that I don't have any of these things. But there's throughout my childhood, people, in positions of authority over me, tried to convince me that I'm somehow a negative person, that I have these defects, and that I'm not good enough in whatever areas. So what I've realized is, no, I'm not gonna agree with anything negative about myself. And when I get into a fight with someone and I feel strongly about something, it's okay that I have boundaries, and it's okay that I say, yeah, you know what, you can believe that, but you can go believe that by yourself. You're not going to convince me that there is something wrong with me, because so it's sort of like I'm like the parent of, I'm both the parent and the child, and I need to protect the child that lives inside of me, and I need to protect the child inside of me from voices of people who are trying to get me to believe something about myself that is not true, and is trying to manipulate me and maneuver me into some kind of position of weakness where I feel guilt and shame, and now they want me to be motivated by guilt and shame to use my time and energy to think about them and to give them what they want, because they can't motivate me in a positive, uplifting way to naturally make me want to give to them. So they get me to think that there's something negative about me, something wrong with me, and that I should give something of myself, even though I don't really feel to give it. So yeah, I mean, this is, when I was younger, I felt I've been trapped by people like this that tried to get me to feel guilty about wanting what I wanted and not wanting what they wanted. And then a lot of my energy got used up by trying to appease people who didn't have any reciprocity towards me, and it was all about them getting what they wanted, and then me feeling it's always some reason that what I was giving was not good enough, so that they didn't have to feel any gratitude towards me whatsoever. So I've learned over the years to be my own advocate. Never go to court without a lawyer. If you don't have a good lawyer to defend yourself, it's you should probably learn how to be your own legal advisor. Metaphorically speaking, when it comes to dealing with people, be your own strongest advocate. If you didn't have a good parent, become a vicious mother bear, a vicious lion father to protect your internal child, because it's very important to your own mental health. And when you do start having relationships, when you've developed this quality of parenting yourself and protecting yourself, then you're going to be in a much better position to also provide that for the people that you love, because ultimately it's about you in this world and about the people that you love. And you want to be a strong person for the people that you love, and you don't want to be you you don't want to be one of those people who complains and feels sorry for themselves and is sucking energy out of the environment, because your attention is not on being uplifting and positive to your loved ones, but it is on, how imperfect and pathetic you are. And, and within that is often the strategy of like, oh, my life is so fucked up. There's shit that happened to me that you just can't understand. You just can't possibly understand how fucked up my mind is and how fucked up my past was. And, if you were in my shoes, and then you would understand there's no possible way that I could be a positive advocate for myself or anyone else. And so you shouldn't expect that of me. But, within that is this strategy of avoidance of responsibility. So this is basically, it's because you haven't practiced this muscle of being your own parent and watching out for predators and making sure you give yourself the right nurturance and reassurance to go through this world. Because this world is a jungle. There are predators, and we need to accept that that's the reality, that we have to be strong and we have to be willing to, put a swift end to those, who would harm us if we have to, and by that, I mean, cutting communications with anyone who's negative towards us or our loved ones, and, being very decisive about what our values are and what we're willing to fight for, and, what we're willing to tolerate. It's good, I think, when you have children and when you have loved ones, understand that they're human beings, that they will, there will be times that they will irritate you and sometimes push you to your limits. But, you also have to be tolerant and allow for growth to take place. But you also need to keep your internal counsel strong and learn what your boundaries are. And if you have to distance yourself from somebody, then, you take maybe drastic measures in order to protect yourself and your loved ones. And, one of those loved ones, you need to remember that internal child of yours is of the utmost importance. It's not just you that you're protecting, this internal child. It's a symbol for everyone that you love in this life, or that everyone that you will encounter in this life is represented by this relationship that you have with your own internal child. And if you don't have a good relationship with this inner self, this inner child, this person that that you love, then it's going to be harder for you to ever fully give to yourself, to other people, and love them in the way that they need to be loved, because you're always going to be hungry internally, because this child that you're not taking care of is always going to be competing with the other people that you're in relationship with. But because you've put this child into a shadow realm where you're not giving it the nurturance, where you are neglecting it, and you're saying, oh, well, this is okay because I'm doing it to myself. Well, no, it's not okay, because what you do to yourself, you will be very likely to do to others. So you can't really be a loving person to others if you can't be a loving person to yourself. So, the world is fucked up, and it will accuse us of many things, and it'll accuse us of being a narcissist when we're the opposite of a narcissist, because self-love is not narcissism. Self-love is the opposite of narcissism. Narcissism comes from a state of fear, of lack, and like this person who needs to it's like an energy vacuum that is never full, and needs to suck energy out of the environment because internally there is sort of something missing. So yeah, it's not narcissistic to love yourself, because love is not narcissism. Narcissists are incapable of love, and that is why they are narcissists, because what what they are doing is they have all their values placed on superficial things that validate them superficially, but that don't actually have the feeling of love. And so there's this never-ending hunger that they have, because there's no real feeling that they have a landing strip to really let love sink in, and to be vulnerable, to have faith in other people. So they're just like constantly trying to control the situation to maximize, admiration, profits, essentially. So, it's interesting. So self-love, give yourself all the love, give yourself full love, and you're in good training to begin to draw people to you into your life, because people will start sensing this self-love, and they will resonate with it because they want to be loved. And you're going to draw more loving people to yourself if you begin to love yourself with an authentic and kind sort of parenting identity. So learn to be both the scrupulous, somewhat unscrupulous, sort of very resolute parent who's able to somewhat coldly and decisively defend against obnoxious, disgusting people out there, because there are many of those. But it's good to not get, obviously you don't want to get hung up on this, thinking about these people, because that is one of their strategies, is to get you to think about them in an excess. And what you need to do when you recognize that you're thinking about someone who's really just an energy vacuum and draining the life force out of you is to maybe meditate, go for a walk, and to, every time you think about them, remind yourself, okay, I'm giving energy to this person. Let's put an end to this. Or also start to think about, what is it about this person that has something to do with me that I haven't worked out, and then try to start expressing, what are these qualities? Why am I attracted to these qualities? Why is my mind attracted to these qualities? Why do I feel the need to think about this person who is, somewhat contra to my values? So anyhow, I think that pretty much covers, what I wanted to sort of talk about today. I'm glad this is like really supportive nature, because this is like the perfect place for me to just sort of like chill and start laying out my thoughts, because there's not very many people here. So I'm not going to be self-conscious, and I'm going to run into somebody who's like going to be like, oh, why is this guy talking to himself? Anyhow, that's my own issue. I am beginning to challenge myself more and more to, because, let's say someone does walk by and says, okay, why is he weird talking to his phone? What's the worst that could happen? They think about me for about 30 seconds, and then they, shrug, and then they start, go on thinking about whatever it is that's actually important to them. So, I don't know. It's funny how we become very self-conscious in this world. But, I think I'll just leave it here. I hope some of this was interesting, perhaps, and insightful. You guys have a good one, and stay true to yourselves.